Discover the amazing hidden truths of Atlantis, transformative lessons exposed across 10,000 years. Jack Reynolds stared at the artifact he'd unearthed, its ancient symbols taunting him with unsolved mysteries. He should have been celebrating the long-overdue restoration of his backyard garden, once cherished by his late wife, but the stone's heavy presence felt like a noose tightening around his throat. His heart thrummed with a potent mix of excitement and dread. What was he really holding? A breadcrumb to a life he'd given up, wisdom lost in the mundane struggles of a small-town existence. Despite his years of teaching, Jack never found the answers he sought. The kids he educated drifted into their futures joyful and hopeful, while his own dreams lay dormant beneath layers of regret. Days blurred together. Teaching history became a cycle of monotonous repetition, one that felt hollow in the absence of passion. The thrill of discovery, of knowledge, had faded. The dusty pages of books always seemed to demand more than he could give. Now, isolated in his quaint little town of Maple Grove, he wrestled with the weight of unfulfilling years, a life devoid of vibrancy. Then that quiet afternoon, as he dug into the earth, something stirred inside him again. The allure of an ancient civilization sparked an awakening, a hunger for understanding he hadn't felt since those lectures filled with eager students. But could he really explore this monumental revelation? He glanced at the house looming behind him, a reminder of the payment due soon that choked him with anxiety. No job now, just a meager pension and unrelenting bills. The winds shifted and whispered doubts into his ear. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Lost in thought, Jack's resolve burned hot and dimmed, playing a game of tug-of-war between financial security and an unwavering compulsion to uncover mysteries. Roger Collins, Maple Grove's local tycoon, would exploit the artifact. Jack's mind raced, considering how he could be the man to honor his father's shadow, an archaeologist who never returned from seeking Atlantis. What if his father had held the answer all along? A flicker of hope wrestled with ratcheting fear as whispers of townsfolk grew louder, relentless judgments sharpening in the diner. Crazy old Jack, they'd say, was he? The thought gnawed at him, each echo an unwelcome reminder of failures that cut deeper than any blade. Deep down, he couldn't bear to let the artifact simply become another commodity. Not while his father's legacy hung in the balance. Jack was on the verge of discovering something monumental. Each page he turned, each document unearthed, only deepened his connection to history and to the ghosts of his past. But time was slipping away, shadows encircling him. Just then, 3 rough-looking men arrived on the scene, their fierce expressions shadowing the sun. Jack's breathing quickened, unease overwhelming. Their intentions appeared sinister, as if they were chasing more than just stories hidden in stone. Tension hung thick in the air, and Jack stood frozen, engulfed by a decision that would dictate not just his own future, but the very legacy of what he uncovered. Would he brave the storm that was sure to follow, or would he become a footnote in the history he so desperately wanted to embrace? Jack's heart raced as he faced the 3 men advancing toward him. They moved with purpose, eyes narrowing as they locked onto the artifact clutched tightly in his hands. The symbols etched into the stone danced with shadows. What had once felt like a tantalizing discovery now weighed like lead. The implications of their arrival bore down on him. "Give it here, old man," one of them barked, a brutish figure with a scar tracing the edge of his jaw. Jack recognized that voice, an echo from the diners at Maple Grove, who thrived on gossip and whispers, an unsettling reminder of the persona he'd been cast into. "Not a chance," Jack replied, the words sounding more resolute than he felt. He stood slightly erect, perhaps for the first time in years, not as a teacher or a debtor, but as someone safeguarding a secret that could propel him beyond this stifled existence. The second man, a wiry figure with keen eyes, scrutinized Jack as if measuring his worth. "Look, We know that rock has value. You need to understand something, it's not just about you anymore. Jack's mind raced. Value? Did they see the same promise in the imagery as he did, or was their vision limited to monetary gain? Suddenly, questions of ethics crashed into his thoughts. This artifact had been untouched by time for centuries. It was a connection to his father's dreams, to the lost civilization he'd spent his life pursuing. Let me guess, Jack shot back, both insulted and emboldened. You want to sell it for a quick buck? Is that what your life's about? Grabbing whatever doesn't belong to you? The brute scoffed, flexing his muscles, the threat palpable in the air thickening with tension. What you think you're holding is not yours to protect. You've already failed, just look at you. Stranded in this town with no future. Every word struck him like a whip, but for the first time, anger surged within him. The idea that he had nothing to lose, that his past failures defined him, began to evaporate. What if this was the catalyst for more? Suddenly, the stakes felt much higher than he anticipated. He hesitated, then took a step forward, thrusting the artifact out towards them as if summoning a strength hidden deep within him. You have no idea what you're after. This isn't just a rock, it's history, possibility, a vision of what could be if you dig deeper than mere profit. The men exchanged glances. Something in Jack's fervent tone subdued them momentarily. Perhaps they doubted their purpose, or maybe they recognized the fire igniting in his eyes. Forget it, the wiry one finally muttered, shrugging as if dismissing the entire encounter. You'll regret clinging to that. We can make it worth your while. But regret was no longer an option for Jack. He understood now that the artifact symbolized more than just a bond to his father, it was a resolve to confront his own mediocrity. In that moment, clarity struck him. Professionally, he needed to wear this mantle of advocate for knowledge, to transcend the mundane life he'd been shackled to. You don't get it, he said, cooling his voice but intensifying his gaze. I'm not giving up on this. Not now. As they retreated, leaving Jack alone once more, his body thrummed with something he hadn't felt in decades, purpose. With a newfound determination, he turned back to the earth, knowing he had a long way to go, but he was ready to embark on the journey, to unearth truths buried both within this civilization and himself. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, illuminating the artifact in a soft glow that spoke of ancient truths, Jack realized the challenges awaiting him would not just be external. The real confrontation lay within, between fear and courage, comfort and growth. But was he truly prepared to embrace every trial ahead, with all its attendant risks? The answer awaited him just beyond the next horizon, where the deeper truths of Atlantis lay hidden, waiting to be confronted at last. The night felt thick with possibilities as Jack cradled the artifact, its weight now a reminder of his singular purpose. He needed answers not just for himself but for the legacies entwined in every groove and etching on the stone. As he stared into the darkness, uncertainty loomed like a shadow. He didn't just want to explore the echoes of Atlantis, he needed to find meaning within them. Back at his modest cottage, dampened by years of neglect and isolation, Jack felt the pull of the artifact anchor him in this moment. It was now or never. With renewed vigor, he spread out the faintly illuminated stones atop a battered old table. Each marking seemed to pulsate, urging him to decipher their secrets. The air around him crackled with latent potential. The first few hours were filled with instinctual excitement and fervent scribbling. Jack felt like the scholar he once aspired to be, a man on the precipice of discovery. The symbols demanded his attention, igniting memories of long-forgotten lectures, smudged notes, and the intoxicating thrill of being part of something grander. He focused fiercely, immersing himself in the symbology, driven by a desire not only to understand Atlantis but to reclaim his narrative. But as dawn approached, fatigue began to wear at him. Questions gnawed at the edges of his mind. Was he truly worthy of uncovering such profound truths? What if the visions he sought were beyond his grasp? The fear of failure crept in, slinking from the shadows like the figures who had confronted him the previous evening. Jack clenched his fists, pushing back the self-doubt that roared to life. You've come too far, he muttered to himself, heart racing against the chilling winds that rattled the shutters. He needed to refocus. The horizon held more than just the whispers of the past, it beckoned him toward a potential he had yet to uncover within himself. As light filtered through the flimsy curtains, he made an impulsive decision: he would seek help. Collaborating with others might be his best chance at decoding the artifact's mysteries. The idea filled him with both excitement and trepidation. Dependence on others had often led to disappointment. But solitude had suffocated him. He was tired of wrestling demons in silence. He needed allies, individuals who shared his curiosity and passion, yet could offer different insights. They could be the keys to unlocking not just the artifact, but also the doorways within himself. He opened his phone, hesitating for a second as he scrolled through old contacts. The familiar name leapt out at him: Mara, a former colleague cut from the same archaeological cloth he once wore with pride. Last he'd heard, she worked on a secretive excavation overseas. Time to reconnect. The thought had a thrilling simplicity to it, but also a daunting weight. Could he face the judgment of someone who had watched him spiral into stagnation? In one swift movement, he sent a brief message, crossing his fingers tight enough to hurt. As the seconds turned to minutes, he worked on second-guessing his choice, the familiar self-doubt intensifying. What if she brushed him off? What if she'd moved on entirely and didn't care about a washed-up professor fighting for relevance? But as his phone chimed, a single buzz that echoed like a cannon blast in the suffocating silence of his home, the anticipation shifted into determination. Her response was swift, direct, and revealed more than words could convey. "We need to talk. I've unearthed something monumental." Jack's heart raced again, but this time with the electrifying promise of momentum. Whatever awaited him on this new path was shrouded in uncertainty. The deeper he went into the enigma of Atlantis, the more he realized it mirrored his own life, a quest for truth wrapped in mystery. He was ready for the confrontation that lay ahead. Little did Jack know, the journey was about to unveil more than he anticipated, testing his resolve, beliefs, and ambitions beyond anything he had ever prepared for. But what dangers or revelations awaited alongside his resurfacing connection with Mara? The true challenge of Atlantis was just beginning. Days blurred as Jack's anticipation coiled tighter. The waves of his decision to reach out for help surged through him. Each tick of the clock heightened his awareness of the impending conversation with Mara. He spent countless hours poring over the artifact, yet it stubbornly clung to its secrets like a sphinx with a riddle. Anxiety threaded through his thoughts, wrapping around the notion that he might finally unlock its mysteries with someone by his side. He found himself meticulously preparing for their meeting, gathering notes, timelines, and his interpretive sketches of the symbols. This once chaotic cacophony of his scholarly endeavors began transforming into a coherent narrative. Did he dare admit it? He was blending knowledge with hope. Each revision to his hypotheses felt like reclaiming pieces of himself his past had buried. Yet, flickers of doubt remained. Would Mara see his evolution, or merely the remnants of a disgraced scholar? On the chosen day, Jack arrived at a cafe that buzzed with life, its vibrant atmosphere a stark contrast to the ensuing storm he felt within. He scanned the room, observing the stream of conversations melding into an ambient soundscape. Jack's heart raced as he spotted Mara. She appeared as he remembered, though there was an air about her that suggested tremendous experience and newfound confidence. "Jack," she beamed, rising to greet him with a firm handshake. "I've missed our discussions." "Me too," he confessed, surprised at how genuine those words felt. The warmth of their connection pushed aside some of his anxiety. As they settled into a secluded corner, Jack noticed the intensity in her eyes, a spark that mirrored his own ambition. "What's this monumental discovery you hinted at?" he asked, leaning forward. A glint of excitement illuminated Mara's face as she spread a detailed map across the table. "New excavation sites have revealed not only artifacts but also texts that parallel your stone's etchings. We may be on the verge of understanding Atlantis far deeper than we ever imagined." Jack's pulse quickened. This was no mere academic dialogue, this was the potential for a groundbreaking alliance. Together, they delved into discussions that flowed seamlessly, combining her recent findings with his interpretations. Knowledge fused at 2 points intersection of past and present ambitions, yet as the excitement swelled, Jack felt unease creeping in, seeded by introspection. Would Mara share this newfound brilliance with loyalty, or could the competitive nature of academia rear its ugly head? There was comfort in their history, but within it lay fragility, the risk of vulnerability when friendships teetered on the line of ambition. I still want to decode my artifact, he finally confessed, voicing his uncertainties. I fear failure. What if it's meaningless in the grand scheme? Mara paused, meeting his gaze with unwavering resolve. What if it's not? Rediscovering purpose isn't just about the destination but the journey. Together, we can amplify each other's research and create something that transcends our individual pursuits. It's time to transform our fears into action. Her words ignited a flicker of determination within Jack. Here lay an opportunity, an invitation to redefine not just academic success but personal significance. As they crafted a plan for their collaboration, Jack began to see that embracing vulnerability was essential. His past didn't define him, but his future could still be written anew. But as they embraced this reunion, a troubling thought surfaced. Had he truly escaped his shadow? The uncertainty of past mishaps loomed behind him, ready to ambush. The path ahead was paved with possibility yet shadowed by the specters of regret and the desire for redemption. As the meeting wrapped, Jack felt revitalized, the weight of burdened isolation lifted slightly. But reassurance began to slip into apprehension. Merely flying high brought him closer to plummeting. He and Mara had laid groundwork, but the fragile hope of success carried its own threats. Would their partnership hold against the trials of revelation? The essence of Atlantis extended far beyond stones and symbols. It echoed with the psychological architecture of those who sought its truths. And as Jack walked home, his mind turned again to his artifact, now igniting doubt anew. Is he armed enough against its ensuing revelations? Before he could dwell too long in uncertainty, a new text vibration buzzed against his thigh. Another message from Mara. Meet me tomorrow. I found something related to you. It will change everything. A chill trickled down Jack's spine. The truth was getting dangerously close to the surface. The morning light broke through Jack's curtains, but instead of basking in its clarity, he felt a palpable sense of dread. The message from Mara echoed in his mind like a relentless drumbeat. What could she have discovered that was linked to him? The thought tormented him. This wasn't merely about the artifact anymore. It was about him, his past, and the long shadows they cast over his present. He rushed through his morning routine, a cascade of thoughts swirling in his mind. What could be related to him? His academic failures. The whispers that still haunted his professional life. As he stood in front of the mirror, he focused on the man staring back. Was he still the same Jack who crumbled under the weight of expectations? Every inch of him screamed to leave those memories behind, yet they clung to him like a second skin. Arriving at the cafe once more, Jack found a table at the back, trying to steady his breath amid the growing tension. He rehearsed countless scenarios in his head. Would Mara confront him about his past, or worse, would she hold it against him? The anxiety rendered him restless, his fingers drumming nervously on the table. When Mara arrived, she carried an air of frenetic energy, her breaths shallow but quick. I have something important, she said, her voice edged with emotion. She plopped down next to him, her hands shaking slightly as she opened her laptop. You need to see this. Jack leaned in, suddenly gripped by an urgency that silenced all doubts. The screen flashed images of ancient texts, symbols that twisted his insides. These texts, they mention a scholar who fell from grace. A legend, perhaps. His heart sank. It dawned on him, she wasn't merely referring to some irrelevant figure. You mean me? Yes, Jack. Mara's voice softened, but the determination sparkled in her eyes. There are mentions of an ill-fated scholar who sought the truth but succumbed to despair, leaving a trail of unfinished work. The stone you found might contain clues that can redirect his failures into a triumphant conclusion. Jack felt exposed, the fear of his past unraveling before him. But what if my past mistakes come back to haunt this work? What if I fail again? Mara placed her hand over his. You won't fail. This is an opportunity. We can rewrite that narrative together. She was right. This wasn't just a chance to uncover the secrets of Atlantis, it was a moment to reclaim his identity. Yet, uncertainty gnawed at him. Could he rise to this occasion? The shadow of his past loomed larger the closer they got to revealing the truth. Tell me more, he urged, his voice steadier but his pulse racing. How can we transform this legacy into something meaningful? As she outlined her findings, Jack felt the remnants of doubt beginning to fade. The artifacts weren't merely items from the past, they were keys to understanding misfortune and triumph entwined. In the heart of Atlantis, he saw reflections of his own journey. Could the path to redemption truly be uncovered in these relics? Together, they formed a plan. Jack envisioned the research as a tapestry where each thread of history interwove with his story of failure. But as excitement took root, an icy finger of fear grazed his spine. Was he prepared for what he might unearth about himself? As they dove deeper into their research, a realization washed over him. This wasn't only about solving an ancient mystery, it was about confronting the deeper truths within himself. The ground beneath their feet began shifting, and each revelation brought forth tension. The ancient texts didn't simply reveal Atlantis, but truths about personal fear and hidden potential. Suddenly, Mara's phone buzzed, and she glanced at the screen, her expression darkening. We have to hurry. We're not the only ones looking for these artifacts. Jack's heart raced anew. Who else had an interest in his story? And what threats might they pose as he navigated this intricate web of past and present? The surface worry transformed into a knot of determination. If he were to walk this path, he needed to face more than just the artifacts. He had to confront the potential of reclaiming himself and the risks that accompanied it. The journey into Atlantis had only just begun, but as Jack stepped into the unknown, a chilling question crept into his mind: would he be able to unearth the answers without losing everything again? The moment Jack stepped away from the cafe, he realized the gravity of the situation. His past loomed over him like an ominous cloud, casting shadows on the path ahead. He worried that the revelation of his connection to the ill-fated scholar would spiral into the shame he had desperately sought to escape. But then, he recalled Mara's unwavering conviction. This was a chance not to be cast as the failure he had been, but to rewrite his narrative. They needed to delve into the artifacts, but a nagging doubt lingered at the edge of his thoughts. What if the deeper they dug, the more personal turmoil they unearthed? Each step toward understanding Atlantis felt like a step toward confronting the very essence of who he was or who he had been. As they returned to the cramped laboratory filled with scattered notes, Jack could feel adrenaline coursing through him, transforming his anxiety into an electric resolve. He meticulously arranged the findings and artifact he had earlier found, eager to make sense of their significance. Symbols danced in his mind, and as he copied them onto a fresh sheet of paper, he felt a flash of understanding. Hidden meanings began to surface, signaling that perhaps his scholarly instincts weren't entirely lost. The thrill of inquiry resonated deeply within him. Look at this, he said breathlessly, pointing at a symbol that seemed to mirror the image of an hourglass. Could this imply time? That there was a warning of sorts this scholar missed? Mara leaned in, her brow furrowing with concentration. Yes, it can serve as a metaphor. The past has weight, but it can also be a teacher. What if the unfinished work of this scholar was meant to enlighten rather than condemn? Her words struck a chord within him. It wasn't just about revealing old failures but understanding them, transforming them into wisdom. Jack realized this was an opportunity to utilize the lost lessons of his past, to reshape the core of his identity and emerge not scarred, but empowered. They spent hours poring over ancient texts, the energy between them shifting from trepidation to exhilaration. Jack could feel old mental barriers beginning to crumble, giving way to newfound determination. This work would not just be for Atlantis, it was a battle for his own soul. As he analyzed each relic and inscription, he found himself seeing glimpses of his own potential. But as evening crept in, a shadowy doubt crept back. What if understanding his past meant facing it openly? Could he share what he had kept hidden? Mara's phone buzzed again, interrupting his spiral of thought. They were not alone in this pursuit, adversaries were lurking in the periphery, ready to pounce at any sign of weakness. He felt the familiar grip of fear threaten to squeeze around his throat, but he inhaled deeply, fighting against the instinct to retreat. Jack. Mara's concerned voice pulled him back from the edge of gloom. We can't afford to falter. What we're uncovering here is bigger than both of us. You have to confront your past, it's essential for our success. Their eyes locked, and Jack sensed a desire to unify in this fight against uncertainty. The presence of the unknown was daunting, but the anger he felt toward his history began to dissolve into acceptance. If he were ever to find success, he needed to carry the wisdom of his experiences rather than hide from them. What if I use this knowledge to forge a new path? He murmured, feeling a flicker of strength. He was no longer the man who shied away from the weight of expectation, he could be the bridge between past and present, grief and growth. As he leaned into the work, a sudden realization hit him: this quest for Atlantis was not just a journey into the depths of history, but a pathway into his own depths. But just as he began to feel emboldened, a knock echoed against the door, causing Mara and Jack to freeze. In that moment of sudden silence, Jack's heart raced. The question pulsed in his mind: were they truly prepared for whatever or whoever lay beyond that entrance? Jack's heartbeat thundered in his ears, drowning out the distant sounds of the city outside. The knock on the door reverberated through the cramped lab, a stark reminder that their cocoon of knowledge and discovery could be shattered at any moment. He shared a glance with Mara, uncertainty pooling in both their eyes. What if it's them? Mara whispered, her voice tight with anxiety. Then we'll face it, Jack replied, his jaw clenched. The determination coursing through him outweighed the apprehension. This was not just a hunt for ancient relics, it was a confrontation with the shadows of his life. Slowly, he approached the door, each step weighed down by unanswerable questions. What would he say if it were an adversary? Would he reveal the painful truths of his past, or hide behind the shield of secrets he had built for so long? He took a deep breath, recalling the resolve he had felt only moments earlier. This was his moment, not just for Atlantis but for himself. As he turned the knob, the door creaked open to reveal a delivery man, holding a large package. Jack felt the tension release a fraction, though it quickly morphed into a different kind of anxiety. Why now? Who had sent a package to them? With a cautious nod, he accepted the parcel and tore it open, his heart racing not from fear but anticipation. Inside was a collection of scrolls, ancient and fragile, their edges frayed by time. Breathless, he rifled through them, hope mixing with disbelief. These were texts from the same period as the artifacts they had been studying, possibly containing further insights into the destiny of the ill-fated scholar. We need to analyze these, he said, spreading the scrolls across the cluttered table. But as he unfolded the first one, a familiar dread swirled in his stomach. The symbols were intricate but unsettlingly reminiscent of his own tumultuous history, a history he had wished to bury. What's wrong? Mara asked, noticing the change in his demeanor. They're referencing a scholar accused of failure, one that fits too closely to my own past, he confessed, his voice barely above a whisper. For a brief moment, fear threatened to drown him, yet he pushed against it. This was no longer about simply understanding Atlantis. His very identity lay tangled within these texts. Mara examined the symbols closely. Then we need to rewrite that narrative, Jack. If there are lessons to be learned from this scholar's failures, we have to decode them. Jack nodded, steeling himself. With every stroke of his pen, he began recording his thoughts, his fears transforming into understanding. The parallels he drew were no longer shackles but bridges. Each insight now served as a crucial tool for his growth, an opportunity to break free from the chains of his past. As night descended, darkness filled the lab, pierced only by the dim light of their desk lamp. The atmosphere thickened, the weight of centuries of knowledge and his own past pressing down on him like a suffocating cloak. Questions buzzed relentlessly through his mind. What did those sealed scrolls reveal? Would the fears return to haunt him once more? A sudden realization struck him: every fragment of knowledge they unearthed added to his understanding, not just of Atlantis, but of who he was becoming. Maybe this wasn't merely an excavation of history, it was a confrontation with his own truth, but as he scribbled his thoughts, the tension returned. Jack found himself staring out the window, the nightlife outside a stark contrast to the turmoil brewing within. He understood what he had to do, he had to embrace these revelations about the past. But would that acceptance strengthen him or unravel everything? A knock echoed again, this time louder. The moment was far from over, and Jack's mind raced with the implications of an incoming challenge. Who could be at the door this time? Would they be able to withstand the onslaught that lay beyond it? The dawning realization gnawed at him, their discoveries could be either a cure or a curse. The path ahead was set to test everything he had begun to embrace, and just as he turned to face Mara, ready to discuss their next move, another knock echoed through the lab, harder and more insistent. Fear and anticipation twisted together within him. What if this time, all secrets were laid bare? As Jack turned back to Mara, the second knock reverberated through the cramped lab with a finality that sent a chill racing up his spine. The uneasiness within him grew, anticipation curled around his thoughts like a predator ready to strike. He squared his shoulders and prepared to confront this uninvited reality, aware that today might very well redefine who he was. Mara's eyes mirrored his concern, the resolve in her expression unwavering. "Should we open it?" she asked, her voice steady despite the uncertainty hanging in the air. "We must. Whatever is out there, we need to face it." Jack's voice was firmer than he felt, revealing a layer of courage he was still trying to excavate. He walked to the door, breath quickening with every heartbeat. The scrolls on the table felt heavier now, as if their secrets might spill over into the present at any moment that he opened the door to find a familiar face. Evelyn, a colleague from his university days, stood there, drenched in rain and an urgency that instantly put Jack on high alert. "Jack! Thank God I found you," she said breathlessly, stepping over the threshold without invitation. "There's something you need to see. You won't believe what I uncovered linked to your research." The gravity in her tone stirred something deep within him. With a cautious glance at Mara, Jack stepped aside to let her in, curiosity igniting a spark of hope. Maybe this was the breakthrough he had longed for, or perhaps another obstacle standing between him and the truth. "What is it?" he prodded, trying to mask the tremor in his voice. Evelyn pulled out a document from her bag, handing it to him. As Jack's eyes caught the faintly gilded letters, something inside him shifted. This wasn't merely scholarly work, it was the kind of evidence that could revolutionize everything they had postulated about Atlantis. He realized this could expose more than just myths, it could unearth parallels between his failures and a world he'd thought long past. "It draws a direct line from your ill-fated scholar to the Council of Elders," Evelyn continued. "It suggests your conclusions may have some unsettling truths." Jack felt a swell of dread and empowerment, aware that confronting this history was as much about understanding the past as it was about unveiling his own hidden inadequacies. "What unsettling truths?" he pressed, his heart racing. The lines between professional integrity and personal revelation were blurring perilously. Evelyn hesitated, the weight of the moment stretching between them. "If this is correct, it implicates a broader context of failure and acceptance, something that might parallel your own journey, Jack." Her words pierced through the noise in his head. He could feel the shadows of his past creeping back in, drawing clear lines between who he had been and who he sought to become. A deep-seated fear clashed with a flicker of hope. Acceptance could be transformative, but the risk of unveiling painful truths also haunted him. "I need more context," Jack responded, his voice steadied by growing determination. "This can't just be a side note, if there are lessons to be learned, I want to understand them completely." Evelyn nodded, her eyes glimmering with understanding. "You must be willing to wrestle with your history, Jack. Only through the embrace of those lessons can you truly define your path forward." He swallowed hard, realizing that the door had just been opened both literally and metaphorically. The convergence of the past and future was at his fingertips, yet the apprehension clung tightly to his resolve. Could he, indeed, reframe his narrative and learn from the shadows haunting him? Just as hope flickered in his chest, the air thickened with a tangible tension. Another knock echoed through the room, the intensity higher, the sound urging action. The moments of inaction were slipping away as revelation loomed. Jack shared a resolute glance with Mara and Evelyn, preparing himself to face whatever awaited them. "Let us find out what's next," he murmured, aware that the next door held not just the promise of knowledge, but the potential unraveling of everything he had tried to conceal. But as they turned toward the door, an unsettling thought gripped him. Were they ready to confront not only the truths of Atlantis but the darkest corners of their own souls? Would the lessons they unearthed be a guide, or would they spell their doom? As Jack pushed the door open, the weight of his decision hung in the air. The tension was palpable, heavy like a storm cloud about to burst. A part of him braced for confrontation, the other eager for resolution. He stepped forward into the dim, flickering light of the hallway, Evelyn and Mara close behind. Each knock was like a drumroll, amplifying the anticipation of whatever lay ahead. The hallway felt eerily quiet, but Jack's mind raced with questions. What more had Evelyn uncovered? How would its implications shape not only his career but also his sense of self? He could feel the tide within him rising, the familiar undertow of self-doubt battling against a burgeoning resolve. This was not just about academia, it was a quest for understanding, a reckoning with the past. As they approached the end of the corridor, Jack's unease tightened its grip. They reached another door, distinguished only by a faint line of light seeping through the edges. It felt like a portal to revelations he couldn't yet comprehend. "Are you ready for this?" Mara whispered beside him. Her voice was steady, carrying a quiet strength that buoyed his flagging courage. Jack nodded, the decision palpable in the firmness of his jaw. He could sense the shadows of his past creeping closer, whispering old tales of failure and defeat. But the strength of his resolve, bolstered by Evelyn's newfound information, urged him forward. The fear was mounting, yes, but so was a fierce determination to break free from those binding chains. He pushed the door open, the creak echoing in the space like a war cry. What lay beyond was a cluttered room, filled with shelves of ancient texts and artifacts lined against the walls. The air crackled with untapped potential, but Jack's focus narrowed in on a large wooden table at the center. It was strewn with documents and maps, all swirling in a chaotic dance of history waiting to be deciphered. "Here," Evelyn said, gathering herself in front of the table as she gestured to an open folder. Colored graphs and notes sprawled across the surface. "This is what I found that connects directly back to your work. It contains references to the lessons learned by those who studied the Council of Elders." As Jack leaned closer, something gripped him fiercely. This was not just data, this was a narrative intertwined with his own. The diagrams and annotations spoke to the gravitational pull of the past, decisions made in darkness, patterns of failure, but also steps toward reconciliation. Each word felt like a revelation, a signal illuminating his path. He traced a line with his finger across an annotation, and suddenly the realization hit him like a wave. What if he was not just retracing the steps of ancient scholars? What if, in revealing their truths, he could unearth his own? The connection resided not merely in the ethereal remnants of Atlantis, but in the choices he had made, the failures he had endured, and the acceptance he was finally beginning to grasp. "What does this mean for you, Jack? For your journey?" Mara's question prompted him to step back, refocusing on the present moment. "I think," Jack began, the words bubbling beneath the surface like a tide about to crest. "I think if I can truly learn from their mistakes, I can redefine my own story. The narrative doesn't have to end in failure." He felt a flicker of hope ignite within him, and though the shadows loomed, they no longer felt insurmountable. But just as fast as the spark ignited, a shadow moved purposefully in the corner of his vision, sending his heart racing anew. The resonance of footsteps drew near, accompanied by a voice that sent ice flooding through his veins. "There you are. You didn't think you could keep this to yourselves, did you?" Jack turned sharply to face the source of the voice, realization dawning with chilling clarity. The past was not ready to let him go just yet. The true confrontation was about to begin, and it would not simply be about the ghosts of Atlantis but about the very real adversary standing before him. With mounting dread, Jack prepared to confront the complexities of not just history, but of his own revelations was he willing to fight not only for knowledge but for the right to shape his destiny? The next moment would yield the answers he so desperately sought, but at what cost? As Jack stood facing the unexpected figure, a chill swept over him as he recognized the intensifying shadows that encircled the room. It was Roger Collins, the same man whose ambition had once intimidated him back in Maple Grove. His presence was a stark reminder that past doubts often embodied themselves in life's relentless adversaries. Jack steeled himself, feeling a surge of revelation ripple through his core, not merely about the artifacts they uncovered but about his own evolving strengths. "You've dug yourself into a deeper hole than you realize, Jack," Roger sneered, surveying the chaotic assembly of papers and artifacts cluttering the lab. This obsession with Atlantis is just another folly." "Is it a folly, or an awakening?" Jack replied, his voice firmer than he had anticipated. The gut instinct that had once shackled him to fear was now replaced by a steely determination to reclaim his narrative, not just for himself, but for the unfinished legacy of his father. Jack perceived this moment as a confrontation with the past, one he often avoided. "Roger, my focus is beyond these stones and symbols. A purpose is driving me to uncover layers of truth that have been buried for centuries. What are you willing to sacrifice to maintain your shallow pursuits?" Caught off guard, Roger reeled back slightly as if Jack's confident stance provoked deeper frustrations. Their eyes locked, and Jack felt the tension crackle. It was time to confront not only Roger but also the remnants of self-doubt that haunted him. With each word that flowed from his mouth, Jack felt newly minted layers of confidence binding together within him. "This isn't just about discovering Atlantis. It's about reconciling with my failures and rewriting my destiny. What you see as folly, I view as a rebirth." Mara stepped forward, and Jack marveled at her unwavering resolve. "And you're not welcome here to stifle that rebirth, Roger. Just as ancient texts sought to educate their societies, Jack and I are unlocking lessons that hold broader significance." "Broader significance?" Roger scoffed, yet uncertainty creased his expression as he scanned the symbols on the scrolls laid out before him. "You're making a trivial endeavor into a dramatic storyline." "Trivial? It's anything but," Jack countered, his heartbeat steadying as he pierced through Roger's dismissive remarks. "Bringing knowledge to light is what history is about. This could reveal truths that can change our understanding of the past, and perhaps even heal some of the wounds from my own journey." "Ah," Roger sighed condescendingly. "You mean learning from your missteps? That's a grand tale, but reality is harsh." His tone dripped with cynicism. It was Jack's turn to smile, real and potent. "Reality seems harsh only to those unwilling to confront it. The more I discover, the more I realize that even failures serve a purpose. I might be been labeled as the ill-fated scholar, but my story doesn't have to adhere to that title anymore." Suddenly, the air shifted, thickening with an unspoken tension as Jack felt empowered, sparking affirmation through the depths of who he had become, not just a relic of the past but a bridge to a vibrant future. "I do not fear my past," he continued. "And neither do I fear you. Those old patterns define nothing about who I am today." While Roger's facade slipped for just a moment, the stubborn spark of defiance remained. "You'll regret this," he spat, but Jack felt the weight of Roger's words lose potency. The storm had shifted under his feet, revealing clarity, a revelation of the self and confidence bolstered by understanding. "Every challenge you present will be an opportunity, Roger," Jack declared, his voice now an anthem of growth and resilience. "I'm not only armed with knowledge from ancient wisdom, I've harnessed my battles to emerge stronger. Not merely as a scholar but as a man willing to forge his own destiny." With a final contemptuous sneer, Roger turned away, the echo of his footsteps retreating signified an unspoken defeat. The sense of victory blossomed inside Jack like dawn breaking. Across a horizon once dimmed by doubt. As silence enveloped the lab again, Jack turned to Mara and Evelyn, their expressions revealing a mixture of relief and anticipation. "This is only the beginning," he murmured, acknowledging them both with gratitude. "Today was not only about defending my work but about redefining who I am." Jack realized that true growth stemmed from facing challenges head-on. The obstacles he once succumbed to had transformed into stepping stones, and Roger was but a momentary shadow on this path forward. After so long in the darkness, the horizon glittered with potential, igniting a renewed fire within him. No longer would he allow past failures to dictate his narrative. Instead, miles beyond just artifacts, Jack had unearthed a profound understanding that extended far into his own personal evolution. In the following weeks, Jack and his colleagues sifted through the magnificent truths of Atlantis while simultaneously reconstructing his identity as an empowered scholar. The discoveries birthed a new vision, bridging the ancient past with contemporary insights. The text on the table became more than mere history. It transformed into a tapestry interwoven with life lessons, empowering not just Jack but those who would follow in his footsteps. With a solid confidence and recognized competence, Jack unlocked a legacy for himself and the knowledge he loved, establishing a new position among those who dared to dream and discover. Each publication, lecture, and presentation resonated with the pulse of triumph, and in the whispers of history, Jack found harmony, purpose, and fulfillment. He wasn't merely mapping the secrets of Atlantis anymore, he was navigating the very essence of who he was becoming. And as he finally stepped from the shadows into the light of this newfound journey, he realized the adventure was not only about what lay hidden beneath the earth but what lay unearthing within himself. If you want to follow Jack's journey of continued personal discoveries and epic transformations, then you need to subscribe now to the channel so you never miss another incredible story. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, and help spread these stories of personal empowerment. Comment below with your thoughts on Jack's journey and your theories about the future. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need inspiration and motivation. Don't let them miss out on the power of transformation. This is the moment to show your support and engage with stories that reflect real-life triumphs.